Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today is another Last of Us video. So The Last of Us episode 3, a long time is what it's called. It premiered yesterday, Sunday, and that was the 29th. I had to check. That was the 29th. And so I watched it this morning. Once again, very good. Very, very, very good. This episode had a little bit of Joel and Ellie interaction at the beginning. There wasn't really like this huge like background story at the beginning like we have had in the last two. So it was a different change up. I was actually a little shocked to see the beginning of the episode with Joel and Ellie. And it basically was like right after the end of the last episode where Tess dies, and they're kind of just in this awkward stage of I'm mad at you but don't talk to me situation. And I really enjoyed this interaction where Ellie's turning to talk to Joel, trying to start this conversation, and Joel's not having it. He doesn't want to have a conversation with her. He doesn't want to acknowledge her. Joel's kind of just in his feelings, and Ellie says, you know, I've been thinking. He's like, I don't want to talk about it. We're not talking about Tess. I'm not doing it. And she's like, I wasn't going to talk about that. And she says, I was thinking about, and this is of course paraphrased, she's like, I was thinking about, no one forced you to take me. No one said that you had to do this so you can get a truck. You need the truck, so you're doing this so you can get a truck. It's not my fault that we're here. It's not my fault that Tess died, so stop blaming me. And just that, like, balls, basically. She had the balls to say that to Joel, like, it's not my fault, man. Stop blaming me. Stop treating it like it's my fault. I didn't make Tess die. And I actually appreciate that. Like, Ellie does not do that in the game, but she kind of just, like, does meet Joel back with a lot of attitude, and there's a lot of times in the game, if you haven't played it, where there's a lot of silence between the two characters, and but you can feel the tension. You can tell that, like, we're not happy with each other right now. We're not communicating, and we know why, because we've seen like a cut scene that's led to something else. And basically this Ellie's just like, look, knock it off. This is not how it's going to be. And then we go, and it's implied that we're going to Bill and Frank's, because they keep saying, well, we need to get to Bill and Frank's so we can get some supplies that we need. And we actually see a sadistic side of Ellie in this video, and I forgot to say that there's spoilers in this video. Like episode 1 and 2, I am spoiling it for you because I'm going to talk about it. So if you don't like spoilers, or if you don't want to see this video before the spoilers, I ask that you come back. Do come back so you can talk to me in the comments about it. But remember, there's some spoilers, okay? So I found it interesting. They showed a sadistic side of Ellie, and she finds an infected in this basement of this store-ish area, and she's kind of like just curious, I guess, of the infected. So she takes her knife and like she cuts it in its forehead. The infected doesn't react to that like in pain. I think that's what she was trying to see, is does this infected feel pain? Is there still a human in there? And I feel like she thought that, well, pain would show me if there's an actual person in here, because there is future dialogue in the game. I'm not sure what the dialogue is in the show, obviously, but when we meet these two other characters, Sam and Henry, Sam and Ellie have a conversation about, do you think that there's still people inside of the infected bodies, and they're just trapped inside their bodies? So I think that's where the exploration of that thought was coming from, and why she did that. She ended up killing the infected as well. She never told Joel about it. She hid the fact that there was infected down there, and what she did, she killed the infected and she went back up, didn't say a word. So I think that's what she was testing for, is if they felt pain and if they were still human in that way. And then we go to a totally different world. That's when we do go back in the past, like we have in the last two episodes, but this time we're with Bill and Frank. And we got to see Frank at the beginning when the infected started becoming about, and so they started quarantining zones and doing evacuations. And we see that Bill was kind of like a doomsday prepper in the beginning already before this all happened, and he has like these security cameras on his house. He's monitoring what's going on outside. There's a lot of people that are being rounded up by the, I guess it would have been Fedra then, and which is the military people, and gathering them up and putting them on buses and trucks. And what's interesting is, beginning of this episode with Ellie and Joel, we do see a moment where Joel says, we're going to go this way instead of forward, and Ellie says, why? This is quicker. He's like, there's something up there I don't want you to see. And she's like, well, I'm going. You told me not to see it, now I want to see it. And they go up and they see like the bunch of dead people that are bones by now because it's been over 20 years. And there's like articles of clothing on a couple of the skeletons. And then we go to Bill and we see the lady with that fabric shirt on, and we see her holding a baby who has the blanket that we saw, because there was like a rainbow blanket. I couldn't tell it was a blanket at first, but then once we saw the baby in the rainbow blanket, we saw, so basically Joel said that if the quarantine zone did not have any space, they pretty much just killed you. So they took you out of that area for control, but if they didn't have anywhere to take you, they basically took you out and back and killed you. So that would have been what would happen to Bill if he would have not been hiding from Fedra. And so he was hiding in his basement, and he was like ready to go, man. He was ready to like go out with guns blazing. He was not going with them. And so basically the whole entire town is cleared out, and Bill finds out that he's all alone, and he loves it. He's so ecstatic about the fact of being alone. It's great. He gets all the stuff he needs from different stores. He takes his boat as a trailer and is just filling it up with all this stuff so that he can quarantine at his house, basically, and just be like, have all this control in his area and all the supplies that he needs. And he's doing fine. He feels like he's always meant to be alone. He seems like he was a loner before that anyway. And then he meets Frank. So Frank falls inside of one of Bill's traps. In the game, Bill is known for traps. Bill is known for all of his little pipe bombs, and like he has like these trip wires that make explosions happen. In the game, like it's a constant thing that you're finding is like traps, traps, traps. And even in the game, Joel falls into a trap, which we did not see in this episode because we were not really with Bill in Bill's town for very long, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But we did get to see some of Bill's traps. And so Frank falls into a hole that's one of Bill's traps, and Bill goes to get what he thinks is an infected inside the trap to kill him. And Frank says when he walks by, he's like, I'm not infected, I'm alive. And so they have a conversation, and he tells Bill, I'm very hungry, can you please feed me? And then I'll leave. And Bill says, I'm not feeding you, because as soon as I feed you, you're going to bring like 1 million people with you, and they'll want fed too. And he's like, I promise I won't do that. I'm a bad liar. You know that this is not going to happen. I'm just wanting food, and then I'll leave. So Bill agrees. And so they have dinner, and I believe it was like Rabbit. And they're sitting down having this awkward dinner where Frank's on one end of the table and Bill's on the other end of the table. And eventually a relationship that is kind of testy at the beginning turns into a romantic relationship. And they have a song that they play, and they play it on the piano. And what's interesting is, in real life, the man that plays Frank can play the piano and sing. So I think his name is Murray. He can play very well, and he can sing very well as well. And the guy that plays Bill is actually a comedian. So it's interesting to have a comedian play someone that's so, like, rough around the edges. And so the song that they sing is Love Will Abide, and it is by Linda. The song is by Linda Ronstadt. I can't say the name probably right, but that's an older song. It's from the 1970s. And the song goes, love will abide, take things in stride. Sounds like good advice, but there's no one at my side. And time washes clean, love's wounds unseen. That's what someone told me, but I don't know what it means. And I feel like that was very powerful in a way, because Bill says, don't play that song. And I feel like Bill was showing that he had some feelings of loneliness, and Frank filled in that loneliness. And so Bill decided, my purpose in this world is to protect you. That is my purpose. And so we see all this love and interaction with each other. There is a gay relationship involved. It's amazing to me to see especially on the Facebook groups oh my gosh, for The Last of Us, how many people were shocked that Bill's gay? Was the gay porn in the game not a hint to you? People are so shocked. People that claim they love the game. And, like, I understand if you never played the game, that probably was a little bit of shocker. Shocker for you, spoiler alert, Ellie's a lesbian. So there you go. Get ready to get mad again, because they didn't just do it now. It was in the game. Bill was gay in the game, and it's implied that Frank was his partner. Bill even calls him his partner, and you kind of put two and two together that they're together, okay, in a relationship, just like you kind of put an implied relationship with Joel and Tess. And so I feel like it's very interesting that people are upset about this, because it wasn't something that they just came up with. Bill has always been a character who was gay. And in the game, Ellie finds a magazine with male porn in it. And that was like the biggest thing to like strike home, other than it was it was like a comic relief moment of her throwing the porn out the window of the truck. It's still like, it makes a line like he was with Frank in a relationship of that type. And so anyway, I just wanted to make it clear that that was in the game, all right? It was very clear. So anyway, they have a relationship. There's love there, you can see. And then when we keep like going like forward in years, and it's funny, we have this first moment when they're together in bed, and it's like their first time, and they're being very romantic and very gentle with each other, and Frank's trying to pet Bill up, like, I'm gonna do this, but if I do this, I'm gonna stay here. I'm not just gonna be, in his words, a whore, and go out after this. I'm gonna stay for at least a few days. And Bill says, okay. And so they kiss each other, and then the scene goes away. And the next scene is Frank bolts out of the house, and they're yelling at each other, and it's been a few years. And Frank wants to start sprucing up the house, start sprucing up like the town area. And Frank's like, no, it's fine the way it is. Because Frank seems to be one of those people that's like, this is how it's gonna be, and this is fine. And Frank's like, no, it's not. You can use your love with protection. My love is by making things look nice. And he's like, we're gonna have friends over. We're gonna do things together. We're gonna have company over. He's like, how? And so he says, I've been talking to a very nice lady on the radio, and she's coming over. And he's like, what? It was funny. Like, their interactions were very funny. And I really enjoyed, like, just the side humor of it. And I was like, arguments that I've had with significant others when you're just with each other for a really long time. These, like, little tips that you have. And I just really enjoyed it. So then that's when we start introducing, like, how Bill and Frank met Tess and Joel. So this is where we find out that Frank is actually who met Tess and Joel and had them come over, and that's how Frank introduced Bill to Tess and Joel. So that's where that relationship started. That's not something that we knew before in the game. They were just always talked about, like, that we get supplies from them. But they never talk about how they got that connection, and those are actually the people that play the music on the radio, which is like their communications. So they're actually talking about that during an episode. Like, if I play 80s music, you know things are not okay. And so they have that conversation in the background. And in that time, Bill and Joel are actually having conversations too, and Joel's basically saying, hey, look, I'm a protector, you're a protector. If you want to be a protector, you're going to have to fix your fence. It's going to not last. There's going to be people that are going to come for your stuff. They see that you have a lot of nice stuff. You're going to have to get a lot more stuff. You're going to have to make it to where we can communicate and we can get you these trades, because you're going to be screwed if you don't get the things that I can give you to keep you alive. And it basically says, if you want Frank to live, you'll do what we say. And Frank and Tess are already, like, great friends, but Bill and Joel, they always have this, like, little rift in them, but they respect each other. And that's how the game is, too. So, luckily, Frank and Bill do keep the connection with Joel and Tess, so they're able to update the fence, have extra protection. There's, like, flamethrowers on it, and it's electrocuted. And it actually helps save them in one of the evenings, because what happens is Joel ends up being right, and there are raiders that come in trying to take their things, and the fence does save them, along with, like, Bill's out there shooting and protecting Frank, and Frank comes out and gets him because Bill ends up getting shot. And Frank takes Bill in and starts taking care of him, getting the bullet out. And Bill believes he's going to die, so he's telling him all these things. He's prepping him. He's like, you need to do this. You need to do this. This is where this is. You need to get, I have a list of things that you need to do. You need to call Joel. Joel will take care of you. And he's like, you're fine, and he's getting rid of the bullet, and he just kept saying, call Joel. And so there's this trust between Bill and Joel to do communications, and he knows that he'll be taken care of when he's gone. And then we go forward in the years again, and we see that they don't say what he has, but Frank ends up getting sick and weaker. It's implied it's either ALS or MS, but they never like specified it, and I don't think they ever meant to. It was just something like Frank is starting to get frail. And we left the scene thinking that Bill was going to be frail, but it's actually Frank that's going downhill. And you can tell that Frank is a wonderful caretaker. Bill is a wonderful caretaker to Frank. And he decides that he's going to just help him go through life. And you can just see that everything is a struggle for Frank. Now, I'm going to pause there for a minute. When we had the bedroom scene, the beginning of the relationship in the bedroom scene, and he says, I'm going to stay for a while. As a player of the game, someone that watched the game you played, someone who's played the game at least 8 times, 10 times, it was hard for me to be happy. Because in the game, Frank basically says, screw you, Bill, and leaves. And he ends up dying. And we find him. And he leaves a note for Bill that says basically, F you, I don't like you, I hate you. You never wanted to leave this town, and I can't just be here and just exist. I need a purpose. And so I felt like that was getting ready to happen. And so for me, it was hard for me to allow that connection and get like in this, oh, okay, and like embrace this connection, because I'm like, he's going to screw him over and he's going to hurt him. And I'm not okay with that, because it was nice to see a different side of Bill, where he's not as gruff and mean, and his mannerisms are a little bit more caring in the show, and he didn't get to that Bill that we see in the game yet. And so it was hard for me to connect that, but then it didn't happen. Because like when they first came, because as soon as after you have the intimate scene, he comes out the door and they're yelling at each other. I'm like, well, here we go. So it was kind of like confirming my thoughts. I'm like, it's not going to go great. But then it didn't happen. They stayed together for the entire time. He didn't leave him. So then I started allowing myself to be like, okay, this is something that is going to be okay. I can allow myself to enjoy this relationship because I know he's not going to screw the guy over. And so finally we come to a point of the story where Frank tells Bill, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I can't be sick like this. This is not how I live. This is not how I'm going to live. You're not going to take care of me like this. I'm done. I'm tired of being in pain, and I'm just tired. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a great day. We're going to get new clothes from the boutique that I love. We're going to get married, and you're going to make me a great dinner like you did our first day we were together. And then I'm going to have you give me these pills and my wine, and I'm just going to fall asleep in your arms and die. And of course, Bill's very against it. He's like, no, we're not doing this. And he's like, let me have this. Let me have this day. Let me have one more good day with you. He's like, I've had a lot of crappy days. Some of them were with you, but I've had a lot more good days. So let me have those good days with you. And I think it's a really good homage to like the idea that in order to love someone, you have to embrace the idea that one day it's going to suck. One day it's going to hurt to love somebody. One day it's just going to be painful. Like, you can love someone so much and they will hurt you, but you still love them anyway. Like, they'll say something that's mean, but you still love them the next day because that's just what love is. And you know that eventually you love someone and you can love them so much, but one day they will leave you. Whether it's because you break up or they pass away, they will leave you. And it's hard to love someone setting yourself up knowing that one day this is going to hurt. Like, if you love someone that's a lot older than you, like a role model or a partner, and you know that you're going to be on this planet a lot longer than they are if things go the way in orders of the world they should, you know you're setting yourself up for that loss. And so it's a moment when and they have a scene in there where, like, they're not getting along very well, and this is actually right before Frank starts getting sick, and Frank takes Bill to a strawberry patch that he had grown. And there's a scene where they're eating the strawberries because they, like, Frank got the seeds. And so it was a surprise to Bill. And they ate the strawberries. And there was a moment where they're laughing and crying at the same time because they're just so excited to have strawberries. So this whole episode to me was about love can suck, love can hurt, but you do it for the strawberry moments in life. So you do all this love, you go through the ups and downs, you go through the pain because there were so many strawberry moments, it was worth it. And that's what this episode is about. And I feel like that was kind of like the giraffe scene in the game as well. I hope we still get it, but this was a great, like, leading up to it. It was a great homage to it because it's like, this sucks. This moment sucks, but we had so many strawberry moments that we can look at and be happy. So I appreciated that moment. It was very special. And that was before, I kind of wish they would have done it while Frank was sick a little bit, just because, like, seeing Frank starting to go downhill a little bit, but not in the extent he was, just so we could see that they were starting to get through, like, a rocky situation. Other than arguing, there's just, like, they were getting frailer. But it was a good scene, and I appreciated that. So, like I said, love is painful, but you still do it because the strawberry moments make it worth it. And so we get to the part where Bill and Frank get married in front of the piano, and they're all dressed up nice. Frank makes them the rabbit dinner that they had the first night they met, and it's basically a, like, reenactment of the first day. And so they have their wine, and then comes out the second bottle of wine, and he gives Frank his, and he puts the crushed up pills in it, and then he has his own wine. And they drink their wine, and they're just sitting there for a minute, and it is pretty quiet, and so Frank said, "You put pills in the wine bottle, didn't you?" And Frank said, "Yes, I did." So Frank had poisoned himself too. They didn't poison, they OD'd. But Frank says yes. He's like, "I put enough in it to kill a horse. So what I gave you in a powdered form was even more, so you'll go quicker, but I'm going to." And it was like this moment where Frank is mad at him, and he's like, "I've lived my life. I'm fine. This is not going to be one of those plays where the romantic suicide at the end." And this is something that is paying attention to, and I guess an homage to a lot of gay plays, or like characters who are gay in plays or movies. The gay guy always dies. There's always, like, this connection with being homosexual and tragedy. This, like, they always have to give the gay guy HIV. They always have to make the gay guy sick and die. It's like Rent. Okay, they always have to make something happen where the gay guy is a tragedy. It's a tragedy to be gay. It's a tragedy to be an LGBTQ plus community. And Bill's like, that's not what this is. Sorry about that. But he's saying, this is not that. I am happy with how my life was. I don't want to be here without you. And this is what I want. I want to go with you. And so they go to the bedroom together. And that's the end of Frank and Bill. Now, it's interesting that they went this route because Bill is alive in the game that we play. And we never see Bill die. We never see Bill again. Like, we don't even see Bill again in part 2, which it was everyone wondered, will we see Bill again? Will we not see Bill again? And we don't. So it was an interesting choice to kill Bill. But we didn't really need him alive for this. And I liked the change. Like, there's some people that are going to be upset that Bill died, but Bill died on his own terms. He wasn't, like, ripped apart by a pack of clickers or anything like that. He died on his own terms with the person that he loved, and I was okay with it. I thought it was very romantic in a way, and I thought it was very moving. I thought I'd get emotional in that part. I didn't. I actually got emotional in the part where Joel and Ellie stumble across Bill's house. They don't stumble, but they're going to Bill's. And they get into Bill's house, and they see that, like, there's food on the table that's been rotting. And they find a letter that basically tells Joel, we're in the bedroom. I locked the door. Don't come in. We left the window open so the house doesn't smell. Please keep things as they are, but feel free to take everything that you need and use it to protect Tess. So obviously Bill didn't know that Tess died. But that was his advice. He's like, we're here to protect That's what our purpose is. Your purpose is to protect Tess. My purpose was to protect Frank. And so at that moment when he's read in the letter that uses to protect Tess, that's when Joel actually steps out. Like, when Ellie's reading him the letter, the first thing he says is, they're dead, aren't they? And she's like, yeah, they are. And he's okay with that. He's just like, okay, they're dead. But when he says protect Tess, that's when Joel has to step out and have a moment to himself. And you can just see, he doesn't have like a breakdown or anything, but you can see that he's preventing himself from having it. And he basically is like, I failed. I let my daughter die, which wasn't his fault. And Tess died, which wasn't his fault. But for him, he keeps seeing failure after failure after failure. So it's more motivation for him to make sure that what he has to do for Ellie is accomplished. And so finally, he actually has a real conversation with Ellie, like more than like 2 minutes, like he has been for the last 3 episodes. And he says, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to do it my way. We don't talk about Tess. We don't show anyone your arm. We do it my way, and you don't question me. You don't do anything. And he says, do you got it? And she says, yeah. And he's like, repeat it. And this was actually a word for word from the video game. It's one of the iconic scenes of the video game. And basically Ellie says, what you say goes. And she doesn't even repeat it because she's a rebellious kid. And so it was a big part of the game. And it was word for word. And I appreciated that. And they've done a few quotes from the game. And I hope they keep that up. And so now they have Bill's truck. And they are driving off to episode 4, which episode 4, based on the previews, looks like they're going to have the scene where we have the very iconic scene where they find a bunch of, what would they be called, looters or raiders, the people that steal your stuff, and they kill you so they can get your stuff. And so we're in that scene where he's going to attempt to run someone over who's begging for help, and really they're just trying to get you to pull over your car so they can kill you and take your stuff. And so we're going to get that iconic scene. We're going to see a lot more badass moves from Joel, and knowing like, okay, this is what they're doing. I can tell right away. And Ellie's going to be like in awe of the fact that, how do you know all this? And he's like, well, I've been on that side before. So we're leading up to that. Now, we did not get to see a bloater. And a bloater, if you don't know, if you're not familiar, is basically an infected that's been infected for a very long time. And it's like they've already gone past the runner stage, the clicker stage, and they're just huge. They're bloating like a dead body would in the hot sun. If you've ever seen one, I don't know why you would see one unless you do my job. So, well, it's implied. You know how animals, when they die and they start bloating up, that's what a bloater is, basically. And they throw like these spores at you, and it's like poisonous gas that comes out of these spores. We did not get to see a bloater while we were with Bill. And that's when the first time you get to see a bloater is with Bill inside of a school when you're trying to get a battery for a truck. So, we didn't get to see that. So I'm hoping we will get to see some bloaters. I'm hoping they're not going to just like pretend that that doesn't exist. I'm just hoping that it is done well. And we do have to actually get to see a bloater, because I was a little disappointed. I'm like, well, that means we're not going to get to see a bloater. And also, I hope that means, like, we didn't get to see the porn scene where Ellie's trying to embarrass Joel with gay porn, which, take it or leave it. The episode did end with Ellie stealing a gun. She stole Frank's gun. So, in the original, Joel gives Ellie a gun. Ellie just took her own gun. So that's a little bit different, and Joel doesn't know she has a gun. So I'm thinking that that's how it's that's gonna change the interaction of, like, Joel actually has a moment where Ellie doesn't have a gun, and he gets in a situation. Ellie picks up a gun and kills somebody for Joel, and Joel gets upset with her. So I think they're just gonna switch it around a bit and have it where Ellie does save Joel at one point, but she doesn't. But he's more upset about the fact that she secretly had a gun. That's where I think that's where they're going to go. I know this was a longer bit of an episode, but I really wanted to talk about it because I thought it was very good. Way they changed things, but made it the same at the same time. I do like the version that they had. And like they've said in the podcast, it was very hard to put this kind of story in the game because you need to keep the action going. So this was something that if it was always a show, this is how he would have done it anyway. But to keep the story going in the game, we did it a little bit differently. So I don't like it. It's not bad. So I think you guys should give it a try if you haven't seen it. Remember to infect the like button. And maybe consider becoming immune and subscribing. And I'll see you next time, guys. Bye!